If I succeeded, it was because of Scientology. If I failed, it was because I wasn't doing Scientology. So yes, I'm running around the town going, I have the answers. I need to get this show because I need to talk about Scientology. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, right off the bat, she starts with two really important concepts that we really need to talk about. She iterates this idea that in her life, she feels like if she's doing good, then it's because of the church. And if she's having trouble in her life, if she's not, achieving her goals, then it's because she's not doing it correctly. She's not doing enough of the church things. And this is a concept that you find almost in every type of organization that binds its members. There's three separate concepts that it's really important to understand that are all interrelated. The first one is something called Totalist Reframing. So what Totalist Reframing is it's a way of looking at the world, a way of looking at your life that always reinterprets things to point back to the group itself, to its doctrines, and to its teachings. And so what you do is when things are going really well in your life, rather than attribute it to your own personal achievements, rather than attribute it to your own skill, your own personal hard work, or the support of your family, or the support of your teachers, or to just blind luck even, rather than attribute it to all of those things which are a part of everybody's life, no matter what group they're in, people in these groups are told to attribute it to the group itself, to attribute it to the fact that they're in the group, in the good graces of the group, and doing the things that are expected of them in the group. And then conversely, whenever something is not going well in their life, whether it's illness, whether it's professional shortcomings, or depression, or anything like that, then the Totalist Reframing instructs the member that they need to look at those difficulties through the lens of not doing what is expected of them in the group. And sometimes it's outright said that way, and say, the reason you're having these problems is because you're not doing enough group study, you're not going to enough meetings, you're not doing this. And sometimes it's a little bit more subtle. They won't say that that's what your problem is, but when you talk to people about the difficulties that you have, the solution that is offered to you to solve those difficulties is to do more of the group expectations, more of the group demands, which carries an implicit message that the reason you're having those difficulties is because you're not doing that level of group expectations from the beginning, whether that's more prayer, more scripture study. In Mormonism, this message is more of the subtle type, where when you're doing good, members, it's just part of the culture where you attribute that to the gospel and its effect in your lives. You attribute it to your temple attendance. You attribute it to how closely you're adhering to doing your home teaching or attending your meetings, how good you're doing in your calling. And then when you have difficulties, there may be some local areas where people just outright say, well, you're not doing your calling good enough, and that's why you're having a problem. Or maybe you've had a few more bad thoughts, or you've done such and such a bad thing. But many times it will be, well, I'm sorry you're having this difficulty. Perhaps if you spent more time in prayer or spent more time searching the scriptures, then you'll find the answers that you need and you'll help yourself. So it's more of that subtle type of things. So the first concept here is Totalist Reframing, where you look at yourself, you look at the world around you, and interpret everything in relation to how you're doing with the group, with the expectations of the group. Now, when you have that outlook, what it ends up doing is it puts the individual in a cycle where anytime they have any difficulty, they feel like they just need to do more or do better compliance with the group expectation. And if you think about it, you can always pray more. You can always do more meetings. There's always more that you can do to conform to the group expectations, and we're all going to have difficulties and shortcoming in our lives. And so this mindset puts people in a state of perpetual inadequacy, because anytime they have the inevitable difficulties in their lives, they think to themselves, well, I need to do more of what the group expects or demands of me. And so you end up having this toxic perfectionism that is part of a concept called a demand for purity. This basically all integrates into a worldview where there's always a level of purity, a level of compliance that you're aspiring to, but not quite getting there. Because anytime you have those difficulties, which we all have, it's always attributed to, well, I'm not doing enough. in the group. I'm not, I'm not going to enough meetings and all these things that we've been talking about. And so the third aspect of all of this is that when you have, the first component, the totalist reframing, which leads to the second component, the demand for purity, where you're feeling perpetually inadequate, the only solution you're ever given to overcome your personal difficulties is to turn to the group to find the remedy. And that creates a dependence on the group, a dependence on the teachings of the group, on the culture of the group, on the leadership of the group, so that people are bound very closely to the group, and it becomes their only source of solace, their only source of comfort, and it keeps people subordinate to people who have leadership within that organization. And it's something that's it's known as created dependence. So these three concepts are very closely tied to each other. And that is, in essence, what she's talking about when she says she's always running around. And if she's doing good, she attributes it to Scientology and the group. And if she's having trouble, it's because she's not doing enough already. And it creates that mindset where she's really closely bound to her identity within the group itself, because it's really what determines her existence in this life, whether it's good or bad, is how well she conforms to the group.